There we go. Yay, technology, it's working. Hang out a quick moment as I also refocus my camera here as we let the live audience begin to come on in. It's always fun on these platforms because it takes a few moments for this to pop up on people's feeds, and we will officially begin here in just a moment or two. Those of you that are here with me live, I will show you over in the comments here, if I can do this. Nope, it won't let me do it. Never mind. There's a fancy link that sometimes lets me share your comments in real time. It may pop up and say Facebook user, which is really lovely and personalized as we often jump into this. Quick tech check, the idiot check. Do me a favor in the comments below. Let me know if you can hear me all right. And also, out of curiosity, let me know where you're watching from. I know we've got an international crowd. We've got the room beginning to fill on up here. And we'll get this produced for you all as a replay after the fact as well. We should often crop out this little fancy part. But let me know where you're logging in from, and let me know you can hear me. And that will be my official go-ahead to officially dive in. And hey, you look good and you sound good as well. See that, Facebook user? This is the kind of personalization you can expect around here. Hey, Levi, good to have you here from Seattle. Sound is great. And let's officially dive in. Welcome, everybody. This is our Attract Pre-Sold Clients live stream workshop. This is where every week I'm here at this time on Wednesdays to do one of three things. One is to often share with you content you can actually dive into right away, to actually teach you what's working right now, to consistently bring the right people into your world. In our space, we're not just focused on bringing in clients. Instead, it's about bringing in that pre-sold client, which the definition of that, it's not just that person who's coming in ready to invest, ready to spend the money, though that is clearly a part of it here. It's also that person who's coming in and they're already sold on the journey, which perfectly is going to lead into some of these questions that I've been collecting from you all, because it's that person who comes into your world and they're already primed to be your best client. These are those people who are willing to follow instructions. These are the people who make use of the resources and the time you share with them. These are those people that are going into the journey and they're already expecting it to be successful. And they're already these people who are not only going to be the most successful ones you work with, but also the ones that are not going to have to be held down to leave reviews or even give referrals online. So this is that target that I speak towards here. And I can see, there we go, in the mountains babysitting my granddaughter. She's currently snoozing. Yeah, they're awesome. I can see Scotty's here as well. And awesome. Hey, Israel, you found your way in. I know it's you from the trophies and the 333. So fantastic to have you here. So one part of this is that I pop up on this weekly basis and give. I share what's actually working right now. The other part is I feature the people that we've been working with. Not just because, hey, this stuff is awesome and look what they've done with what we've trained them. It's to say that rising tide lifts all boats. And it's so often to hear the story of someone who's been successful. And it's this belief shift that we need inside of ourselves to then realize that, hey, there's people out there that are making it work. Not just for the point of going, okay, so clearly Jason and his team do this premium influence consulting program. I should check into that. And yes, you should. It's also to call out, again, the what's working right now, that if you're ever in a space where it's just the guru collecting everybody at their feet and everyone's pointing upwards and going, look how smart they are, it's often a trigger to then find another space. And instead, it's by elevating the people that have been working with us with the support that we provide. You're hearing this applied to other industries. A few weeks ago, we had Joel, who, this still impresses me, does dog training by Zoom. Here's people in like the counseling space who are going, does it still work online? Is it effective? Like, this dude's training dogs through webcams, which right there is just this beautiful shift because, well, you don't want your dog responding just to him. You want your dog responding to you. So now that I heard that from him in recent things, I'm going, help us with our dog. And the other part of this too is to interact with all of you. And this is what we do this on occasion. It's to do these Q&A style events. Now, I've been collecting a number of questions in the lead up towards this. Some of you have been emailing me. Some of you have been putting them in the responses. And I've got a really cool list here. So if you've got additional questions, feel free to put them in the chat down below. If I don't get to them right now, it's because we actually got some phenomenal things coming in advance. I also did the appropriate thing, and like the same thing popped up 3 times, and I combined it all into one. And actually that one is kind of fun because of the 3 people who asked about objections, 2 of them were named Stephanie. So we're just going to say Stephanie asked that question. Now, let me kick this off the way that I normally do it, though, which this is not just for Facebook engagement. Let me call that out. It's to point out that so often we make this mistake of going into information overload, where we absorb so much information, and there's a lot of stuff that's out there. We absorb so much information, but we absorb it, and it unfortunately goes in one ear, it kind of bounces around a bit, but then it bounces right out the other side. Because there's 2 ways you could interact with what I'm about to share with you. Option 1 is that same passive learning that is the fault of so many reasons why we're not where we want to be. Where we just collect these ideas and we gather this knowledge and it becomes the someday. Or you can take this next 25 or so minutes that we're going to spend together here and decide to move into a state of active listening. It's where I'd encourage, grab a sheet of paper, grab your device if you are not watching on it, and jot down some notes. It's because that ability to then take this information and take action upon it, it's where law of action, power of feedback are the 2 principles I teach through, which is that we need that feedback of our actual audience to begin to see exactly how we need to shift that messaging. And then it's actually by taking action that we're getting this real-time feedback. The number 1 issue I consistently see is that you are invisible to your ideal clients. And that invisibility comes about from 2 different places. Either 1, a complete state of inaction. And I found there are some people, we've had these chats with some of you, that I'm afraid I might do it wrong. And while this may not be the most inspiring thing I could say here, it's the fact that if your email subject line is weak, if the title of your video on YouTube is not as eye-catching as it could be, they're not going to show up to your house with torches and pitchforks and demand blood. No. Worst case scenario, it's ignored. And I'd rather that than absolute nothing. The bigger issue, though, is even for those of you that are putting out content, and the one consistent pathway towards consistent pre-sold client attraction is through a consistent content strategy. However, it's got to be through this filter of what I call belief-shifting persuasion, which I know based on the questions that have come in, we're going to elaborate on that even further. Of it's not just the what of what we're saying and what we're putting out, it's more the why these pieces come together to then bring your audience on a specific journey and have a reason to specifically then do business with you. So let's kick this off right, because there's 2 ways you can engage with this today. One is that weak, passive, nonsense stuff where you're just basically spinning your wheels and going, oh, that's interesting, I should do that. And with love, I want you to stop shitting all over yourself. And instead, we can move into the state of active listening. So let's do this right. In the comments down below, put that word active, all caps, make it count, throw some emojis around it, hit the thumbs up. Let's get this room blowing up here. That's where we know it's exactly time to dive on in. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, technically 9 questions, but one of them was asked 3 times. So, and 2 of them were Stephanie's, so we're going to combine this one on objections here and dive in. I've got 1. There is this painful time delay that I get with this software. There we go. There's all of them now. I get like 1, and it's like, come on. And then all of a sudden we've got activate. That's the asterisk. Okay, we've got active. Okay, sentence case, but we'll take it. And, oh, that's what we like to see. True fact. It's always got to be an odd number of exclamation marks. I don't have time to elaborate, but it's always true. Active, that's what we like to see. So I've collected the questions that have come in so far. Some of these were the ones on the announcement, and I think I've got them in a pretty good sequence here to dive in. Let's start with John's question that John emailed this to me. And I'll do my best to generalize these out for everybody here. My best referral source just moved. I've been there. What would you do to get new referrals in my local area? I'm always going to make it a point to come at this specific question, not just from the angle of here's what everyone else would likely say. It's that I want you to begin to think differently about this journey. The filter that everything I share with you and those that we're currently working with is through that filter of belief shifting persuasion. And this is going to come into place, especially as we get to the Stephanies and the question about objections, which is that anything explained in advance is education. Anything explained after the fact, no matter how well you do it, the brain hears it as an excuse. It's this having to backtrack into that journey and go, no, it's not exactly that, it's this instead. Oh, no, it's not this, it's this instead. And the moment we do that, we're losing some of that desirable momentum that we want to have with our crowd. So I bring this up because this question about, I'm thinking back to a time where, this would have been 2012, I think. I had this incredible referral source when it was a local business only. And suddenly the guy who was sending me all these people then suddenly picked up and moved to Ohio. And then I connected with someone who was doing things similar to me in Ohio. He was thrilled, but then I didn't have that referral source. The easy answer would be to then make it a point, let's go to the classic Steve Martin line, become so good they can't ignore you. I've got to talk a little bit more horror story perspective on this one, that I firmly believe the single best asset you could ever have as a skill set for your business is your ability to create the right content that consistently brings the ideal clients into your world. I think back to a friend of mine who's in a very different industry than me, and it was something involving events, and he had this one referral source. And I mean, this referral source was genuinely paying this man's bills. Just, there wasn't a month that he didn't have an event thanks to this one person. And then, sadly, here came the heart attack. And as then the referral source was gone, no one in the family wanted to continue to run the business. And overnight, business was gone. That was it. There were a few contracts that were still being satisfied. The family kind of, worked with the people whose names were on the things to go, hey, here's what happened. This person's no longer around. And they kept the peace. There were a few events that just got canceled. Yet that was his entire business plan. And I know people who, even in more therapeutic routes, that suddenly the legislation changed. And I think to a conversation I overheard at a doctor's office this week, which was that because this practice was bought out by that hospital system, we only can now refer inside of that hospital system. So I cannot give you a recommendation. You have to go to your insurance company's website and look for providers yourself. But I can only point this direction because suddenly there's all the bureaucratic red tape and all of that. So I don't want to completely move away from this referral conversation. I've just seen, and I've received this moment before, where we become so dependent upon one thing. And as much as this event right now is going out right now live on Facebook inside of a Facebook group, you better believe I am diversifying at the same time. I'm recording this. I'm going to take segments of this and put it on YouTube, maybe pull some short form stuff out of it. And it's where, let me say this while Facebook is listening, Facebook could suddenly disappear tomorrow and I still have people's email contact information. I'm still connected with them on other platforms. So my real answer to this referral scenario is that when you have your client acquisition system truly dialed in, it's that the referrals become this wonderful icing on the cake. It becomes this wonderful stream. And I can think back to client a number of years ago who the friends were calling up and saying, "You got Barbara to like let go of the stress and actually sleep at night? She's crazy. If you can help her, you can definitely help me." And I found out that Barbara was telling them all to say that. Those referrals were all this amazing gift. Yet it's where my real answer, John, is that, look at how you got that first referral source. Ask yourself what you did to travel down this pathway of know, like, and trust, because that has to be there before anything else arises. I would say, though, at the same time, take that sincere step to the side and ask yourself, how dialed in is your own marketing journey? Like, to the point that even to this day, if I'm getting a referral, I'm using my own influential content, something that I call subconscious sales system. I'm using my own content to then elevate those people, even if they're coming in from a qualified source. This way, they are elevating themselves up even further to truly be ready to work specifically with me. So recognize that this content strategy is going to follow over not just to the initial client acquisition and the sort of top of funnel stuff, but it's even the assets we can then use for referrals. So I'm always going to come back to, when you own the system of how you know how to genuinely hit a few buttons and have people come into your world, there's no hope it keeps going. Because I've just seen it way too many times that suddenly this one reliable source, poof, it's gone. I even go back to when I was in a BNI group, a Business Networking International group, and our one Rockstar member, I'll leave out the bank. It was not Bank of America, but let's just say it was Bank of America. Our one Rockstar member, sending the most qualified referrals, gets up one day and goes, "Hey, hope we can all still be friends, but I need to resign because my bank has now given me a list of all the other real estate vendors that I'm allowed to refer to. And I've been advocating, they won't let me put you guys on it. So this sucks, I'm out." And suddenly I saw him then switch to another bank because he's like, "Oh no, we're not doing it this way." They were throwing out all these years of relationships. It's that one skill set to then create business on demand. That is going to be your most reliable skill set. Let me know in the comments down below if that makes sense. So I don't want to completely sidebar away from this referral conversation, because as we put that focus on that influential and persuasive content, that's what I then can arm these new people with. So that if it is a doctor, as I saw someone mention in chat, I can't see if that was you, John, it's that now we're creating the assets that are necessary to bring those people into that world. I'm getting some thumbs ups and ahas inside of the chat there. Let's move this forward because we've already addressed this one here. Another question that came in from two Stephanies, and I forget the third person's name. I'm in a low income area. What's the best way to handle the price objection? Okay, so let's go back to this objection conversation for a moment. If something is explained in advance, it's education. If something is explained after the fact, no matter how well you do it, the brain still hears it as an excuse. If there was ever the opportunity that you could go into your mind and go, "Yeah, but it's probably not going to work with this," or "Jason just mentioned something about emails, that's probably not going to work because what about this other thing?" And if you're able to go in that other direction, even if I completely satisfy the concern, the fact that you had the opportunity to go there. So I've got to say the real answer to the price objection is that it's not always about the price. And this sometimes hits a little harder than I intended to. It's the fact that price is the easiest thing to blame. Price is the easiest thing to have a concern around. And I'm sorry for this phrasing, yet it becomes a true statement as you really look around. People spend a lot of money on stuff that they don't actually need. And if there's something that someone truly wants and truly desires, they will find a way to make it happen. I think to when I had laser vision correction done like 8 or 9 years ago, it should be 9 years ago. We had it like a month after my son was born. So about 9 years ago, almost 10 years ago at this point. And I think too, I had the money, insurance wasn't going to cover it. and yet I knew it was going to be this big $4,000 or $5,000 price tag. And so what I did was I applied a little bit of logic to go, you know what? If I open up another savings account and I automate this small amount of money every week, at this point in time, I'll have the funds there. And so I went the set it and forget it route, so it didn't feel like it was going out of there. And I did hit this breaking point, though, which was baby on the way. Frustrations around the more medical reasons why I needed to get rid of contacts and glasses and such. And it just reached this threshold of just going, it's important to me. I'm going to move the money around. We find a way to make things work. It's that old thing that there's going to be that scenario where think back to high school or college. Suddenly, oh crap, the paper's due tomorrow. Now, are there situations where just the money isn't there? Yes. I will say, though, that is not most often the reason. I forget who I heard say this one time. The question was, what is $1,000? And the answer was actually surprisingly simple. $1,000 is $1,000. If it's someone having to replace a major system on their vehicle and the car won't drive, well, $1,000 may be a high ticket to that. Yet again, it is surprisingly affordable when you're putting it up against having to just buy a whole new car. Everything is relative. I was hiring a technical service to fix something that was broken in the business, and their opening question was, you obviously know that this has become an issue. If you had to estimate, how much money are you losing because of this? I'm like, you guys are good. That's good. So money is the easiest thing to blame. I would say part of the question from one of the Stephanies was including the phrase, I'm in a low income area. Everything is relative. People who live in New York City often earn more money than other cities, but it also costs more money to live in New York City. Ooh, I'm in Florida. There's no state income tax. Yeah, but my insurance is higher everywhere else. It all finds a way to balance out here. And, alligators. So I bring this up because I love this old phrase of the amateur changes their act, the professional changes their audience. It might be an audience issue. I will consistently say, though, money is the easiest thing to blame. And it's not that they don't yet believe in you. It's that people are looking to make decisions for reasons differently than most people are trying to promote within their businesses. We're presenting the stuff that we feel they need. We're presenting the stuff that we think that they want. And do you see how there's already a disconnect? So I found that as much as we could get really clever and have fun and come up with all these creative objection crusher lines, which are a lot of fun and really entertaining to get into, it really comes around to, I found that it's often a red flag that something else needs fixing. So I'd ask yourself, how dialed in are you on really speaking to the exact desires of your audience? It's where I know the audience that comes here. I know how frustrating it is when you look around and you suddenly see people who are not as skilled as you are, people who are not as passionate as you are, and they're thriving in their business, and you know that what they do is only a fraction of what you're able to do. And it's not that it's this jealousy or anger, but it's just that you could help these people more. And what am I not doing? And it's so easy to, again, go to external blame of going, oh, Facebook isn't showing me, emails aren't being opened, and blame these other things. Yet in most cases, it comes back to that core messaging. It comes back to how are we taking this audience on an emotional journey where now we are clearing away those objections even before they arise. We are satisfying any concerns along the pathway. So if I had to just give a simple strategy, to give you something you can take action on immediately here, it would be that find a way to draw a comparison. So I may talk sometimes about the fact that combined with me and the team that I have around me inside of Attract Pre-Sold Clients and the consulting that we do, the last I tracked it, we're getting taxes ready for 2022, I reinvested $134,000 of the company's money back into me, into my education, into our team of resources that we make use of to continuously do what we do better and better and keep leveling up what we do. If you're curious what just happened there, I just pulled off something that's called a price marinade, which is I created an anchor in your mind of $134,000. And yes, we offer a consulting program. We work with you inside of this step-by-step one-to-one journey inside of a bigger group program, helping you to dial in the core persuasive assets that truly need to be there for this consistent client creation. And if I can tell you simply, it ain't $134,000. And whatever number comes next, that's not $134,000, by comparison is a whole lot more reasonable. So there's an example of something, but I'd say if that's the only mechanism that's being plugged in to try to cut down on the price concern, if it ever becomes about the money, I found in most cases it's not actually about the money. So again, ask yourself, what concerns am I not hitting? What segments of this journey do people need better clarity on? What is the part that they need better perception of true value of, and not just perceived value, but real actualized value? It's part of why I make it a point, I call this elevation content. It's where I'm doing these interviews at times with people that we're currently working with inside of this group and featuring their stories. In one part, because my core learning principle is, if you can teach something so well, it means someone else can also do it, but then also they can make it their own. And I don't know if she's here right now. We've got Carrie, who's working with us, that she took one task of something that I usually give as a assignment to really get dialed in on the offer structure. And I used to say, do it this way or do it that way. It's an intuition thing, whatever one feels right. And she goes, I'm going to do them both. That way I've got it as a core persuasive asset moving forward. And I'm like, that's how we're teaching it now? So I'm highlighting them because it's how I hear what they're doing well. And also it provides that proof along the way that, hey, this stuff works. Which, if you're curious about this, we kick this off with something we call a client attraction audit. I think Scotty, who's here right now, she's our lead influence specialist. It's a quick meeting where it's about diagnosing exactly why your current marketing messaging isn't yet working the way that you want it to be. Or if you're in that stalled point at the beginning, it's about unsticking that stuck state and then offering specific suggestions on what needs to happen to then get that into momentum. And then if we know we can help you out, we'll map out exactly what that looks like. If you're the kind of business or person that we work well with, if we don't think we can help you out, we won't try to sell you anything because that's in both of our best interest. So if you're someone who's not yet working with us, if you'd like to claim one of those client attraction audits, say the word START in the comments down below. START, S-T-A-R-T. I've learned to spell it just in case. But put START in all caps, and that way I'll see it, or Scotty will see it, and we'll make sure we connect with you by the end of the day to then get that scheduled if it can't happen today. If you want to connect with us for one of those client attraction audits and get kind of a preview of how we can work with you to help you to dial in that messaging machine into that influential system, put the word START, all caps below, and we'll connect with you from there. Cynthia, there's a transition. If I'm changing my business, how do I pivot my messaging to start showing up? Okay, so there's several moving pieces to this one. I see the start there. I can see, again, they've updated my streaming software, so I've got these lovely Facebook users, and I've got one that says Mastery. I'm assuming that's a answer to the question, and we'll connect with the software and figure out why it's not showing your names. But those of you saying start, we got you. We'll connect with you by the day's end. If I'm changing my business, how do I pivot my messaging to start showing up? I'm going to say something first of all that this is kind of a letdown sometimes when you realize it to be true. And I need to hold my hand up on this one and just call myself out that there's a podcast episode I did on the Attract Pre-Sold Clients podcast. If you go to attractpresoldclients.com and then up at the top, there's a thing for podcast, or anywhere you can find podcast, do a search, Attract Pre-Sold Clients, you'll find it. There's an episode that I did called How I Failed My Way to $5 Million. And it's the story of collected over the years, so spread out over time and all the years since I launched my business. There are several turning points that I'd use the word in a very loving way of something that bombed, something that failed, something that crashed and burned, something that just downright sucked, and I had to fix it. And this is part of that journey. It's where along the pathway we find this, again, it's what I call the power of feedback, is that we're getting the best insight by really realizing that our audience communicates with us. They vote with their clicks, their dollars, their attention. And I'm the person who actually has two different things that I offer, both of which individually have sold 7 figures in total, culminated over the years. Both of these things. One of them I have renamed at least 3 or 4 times. The other one I think I've renamed 3 times. One time I made a big deal about, now it's called this! And then one of them recently I just very unceremoniously just changed the message and just assumed as if that's how it's always been. And that actually worked better than calling attention to it. So I'm hesitant to say this. It's a lesson I learned from back to the networking world. One of the bigger mistakes that you can make is assuming everybody has always seen everything that you do. I can think back to a time where, in a very different style of my work, I was doing assembly programs for high schools. And at that time, it was more postcard messaging. It was more direct mail. And here's the school that, Jason, this is such an amazing program. I wish you let us know about it years ago. And I had to hold myself back from saying, I've been sending your school 2 postcards a month for the last 4 years. It just took whatever kid was in school suspension that day in detention, sorting the mail. It finally went in the right box, I guess. You never know when it's going to be the message that they actually respond to. And so I don't want you to hear this in a demeaning way. It's that we often make this mistake of assuming everybody has always seen everything that we do. And I make it a point nowadays, because of this, that every piece of content is going to work for both those people coming into my world at the very beginning, and this is like their first introduction. At the same time, I'm aware of some of the continued themes that I tend to speak towards, which are then amplifying this new way of looking at the world. So I'm always approaching things as if this is the first interaction. Now, of course, when we're talking to many of you, we're keeping tabs on, hey, the fact that I saw a 3-3 thing, oh, that's Israel. And like, we firmly believe in relationships. Yet at the same time, if I really had to answer Cynthia's question about changing my business, how do I pivot my messaging to start showing up? Well, one part of this would be ask yourself why it wasn't working before. And sometimes that's something that directly points back to us. Sometimes it was that I used to think this was the important thing, and the more I listened to my audience, I found out this was their need. And as I spoke towards that, anybody who's been in business, anybody who's been in the online space, we often make the most fatal error, which is speaking and creating based on what we think the audience wants, as opposed to you've got one mouth and 2 ears. That communication should be proportionate. Do you see how today it's actually about answering your questions and not just popping up with the, here's what they need? So I do these because it helps me to refine my message. Look at today as a model. There's a time, I did a TikTok on this the other day. There's a time that I did a survey for a challenge event. Like, what are your biggest problems on XYZ? And suddenly, like, here were the 5 things that came in with the highest votes. And then everything else was like non-responsive. And suddenly it's like, oh wait, that's the 5 days of the challenge. They just told me exactly what they want. That's what I'm going to give them. So Cynthia, I'd say ask yourself to take a good, honest look. And I'm always one to say, how can we point that focus back to us first and go, what needs to be different? At the same time, I would say every day you have an opportunity to reinvent yourself. It's amazing how short people's attention spans are. And sometimes it is that strategy of you being that person who puts that message out enough and then they're taking it seriously. I think of a podcast that I did, and a friend, when episode like 315 came out, he goes, oh, you're serious about this. And it's that entrepreneurial spirit to be that person who's willing to solve a problem that's not your own. And often that does come from a place of wanting to solve a problem that's the one that you had many years ago. It's a big part of what I do nowadays. I used to do this only inside of like one-to-one consulting, and I was becoming the bottleneck. I wasn't able to help as many people as I wanted to. And so much of it was about getting into the specifics of the messaging and the content strategy. And part of Cynthia's question was about where should I be doing these things? And it's where any one audience is different than the others. So just because I just said I put up a TikTok video doesn't necessarily mean that that's the end-all be-all. Instead, it's a matter of asking the right questions to dial in exactly what channels you ought to be spending your time on, because it always comes back to who's the audience, what are their specific wants and needs and desires, and it's from that we get these answers. Anyone who's trying to push you towards this specific thing or that specific thing, they've got a motive. And instead, this is where I'm sharing with you the stuff that's going to work on the channels that don't exist yet. Whatever social media platforms eventually replace the ones that we think we can't live without right now, this will still work. It's speaking to that human desire. It's speaking to that human nature. But again, my real answer, Cynthia, is don't assume they've remembered everything. Instead, make your best entrance every single time. That's the best advice I'd give on that one here. This relates to Romain's, which is actually going to be a pretty straightforward question and answer here. Romain sent in, what kind of ads should I be running on Facebook? Let me hold the hand up. I love me some paid traffic. And putting a message out, if you really had a product that was for people in Phoenix, Arizona who loved peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, you could have a message in front of them by the end of this afternoon. There's the ability to go that granular. The biggest mistake that I see, though, is jumping into that relationship when we're still playing this game. The number I'm about to say is not meant to be another price marinade, yet here's a friend of mine who was paid about $30,000 or $40,000 to basically write a 3-minute script for not George Clooney, but someone like George Clooney to then record on camera. Because they don't have time to then go, George, that wasn't great. Can you come back and do it again? Because then they'd have to pay George. His income was higher than the $30,000 or $40,000. So I'm a firm believer of starting organic. And while it doesn't have the big sexy appeal that the paid traffic does, and but that's how I can scale, it's the fact that, well, here's someone that we're working with right now that dove heavily into ads. And I mean, it was the deer in the headlights as I asked my standard question. What's the problem that you saw for your audience? And he couldn't answer it. It was all through the filters of what's important to him. And do you see the disconnect already? If we're only paying to broadcast a message talking about what's important to us, chances are we might be the only person clicking and responding to it. Versus I am only ever going to throw money behind something when I've proven it to work organically. When I've got proof that this is the thing that is going to be effective. Otherwise, it's like throwing the money up in the air and hoping it comes in. So in most cases, and Romain, only because I'm aware of part of where you are in the journey, it's this kind of cart before the horse idea. And I would say, though, the better I have dialed in my own organic marketing, as someone who does spend a substantial money on paid traffic these days, as I then play the strategy of proving the efficacy on the organic side first, it does take a little bit more patience. But the trade-off is, just to nerd out here for a moment, here's a campaign that we've had running for a while that if we had it going out and typically for every new lead that came in, we were actually happy that we were getting those new leads, given what these people then turn into for us for like $18 to $20 a person. Now, when they're converting for a much bigger number, that's the real equation to look at. However, it's as the focus then went back to organic content, making sure that this is something that stops the scroll, making something that truly shifts the audience's opinions and belief systems before they're ever met with an offer, where now they're selling themselves into what you do. As I've proven things to work on the organic side, that's the stuff that then we put towards the paid traffic. And I checked it this morning. This thing that previously, when I first jumped into ad stuff, is like, oh, that's the stuff for ads. This is the stuff for organic. And instead, when it became this appropriate stair-stepping journey, what used to be $18 to $20 per lead is now bringing in, today it's been showing up between $5 and $7. Do the math on that. That's almost a third less. And if we left everything as it is, that kind of parameter gives you the potential to like triple the income if everything lines up. It comes back to organic content. It comes back to proving the message is viable. It comes back to really dialing in what is going to stop the audience in their tracks and really move them forward here. I'm going to keep going here. I was going to say we're going to go for 20 minutes or so. I've got 2 more questions that I know I want to get to here. One of them is, what kind of videos should I be making? The other one that I'm going to address here was about consistency, about I was posting every single day and it worked, but only if I was doing it. What's the alternative? I'm going to answer both of these on what content you should be creating and what frequency should be done. Yet this is a big part of what we help with. This is what we help to solve the frustration and the overwhelm on. The reason why so often you accidentally find yourself invisible to your dream clients is that it's as if there's 2 different languages that are going on. And the one pathway to that consistent pre-sold client attraction is that pathway of that consistent organic content through the filter of this belief-shifting persuasion. If you are waiting, like the pricing thing, if you're waiting for the objections and concerns to then address them, you've got an uphill battle. If it doesn't feel as if you're pushing up against them, you are when they go, well, yeah, but what about this? So the solution then is to speak and communicate in a way where you are covertly and ethically inviting the audience to sell themselves on what you do. We've created a whole 30-point success path, I know because I counted the other day, of how as much as it's a group program where there's opportunities for feedback and regular live events that are all archived for you as the replays. I'm the guy who's gone through enough group programs that sucked to build one that actually serves people. And you've seen some of the wins we've been sharing. And it's where it all begins with this one-to-one journey. And over in our team's communication, these are the people that are actually in a channel that I call advisory. I only hire on people to work with my team that can do what I do as well as I can, if not slightly better, as you'll quickly realize as you go through this path with us. However, it all begins with this client attraction audit. If you're someone who's not yet working with us, just put the word START in all caps down in the chat below. I'll see it. Scotty, who's here, will also see it, and we'll make it a point to reach out to you today. Even if you're watching the replay on Facebook, you can still put START down there. Or if you're watching me on a web page, there's probably going to be a giant purple button. Click that instead. But we kick this off with diagnosing exactly what's missing right now in your current messaging, offering specific suggestions on what needs to change. And again, we operate from transparency. If we know we can help you, we'll tell you exactly what that looks like. If we don't think we can help you, we're not going to try to sell you anything. That way it's a win-win for everybody. Here we go. 2 more questions. Yeah, put the word START down below if you want to have that chat with us. What should my videos be saying to track, and where should I post? Oh, let's have some fun with this one right now. With the folks that are here right now, the question is, what should I be doing in my videos? If you've been with me since I started this Dream Client Attraction Q&A, I'd love to hear some guesses, because I've got a very, very straightforward answer for this one about what should I be putting into video content here. Let's get some guesses, though, in the chat down below. Drop some guesses as to what you think that would be. What kind of things should we begin to speak towards in videos? What kind of content should we be creating? What are those resources and assets, Cynthia, as if this is the first thing that they're seeing, that we want to have out there to bring people into our world? I'll give it a moment to get a couple of things in here. We've got emotional stimuli. That sounds so fancy, and I love the way that you've said that. And we'll see if any others come in. There's this horrible time delay with my software here. I'll mention some of the others as they pop up here. Quick answer first. The content needs to begin in alignment with your audience. And I'll give you a preview of some of the questions that need to be considered. And this is where the fact that we're doing this in this online webinar, Facebook Live kind of format, you'll see why it's really helpful that I can't see you right now because of one of the references that I make here. What are the questions that are keeping them up at night? What are the concerns that are distracting them away from their life? What are the conversations that they're having with their loved ones? What is it that they're searching for already? What is it they're searching for in private web browsers? Oh, that's a good one. And if we cannot yet speak their language, it's as if we're in this foreign dialect. Now, there's this double alignment that needs to occur here, which is from where they are, it's got to then bring them into our world, so long as what you do absolutely helps them. The ethics of all of this is that if your program, if your service, if your product, if your fill in the blank truly delivers on what it promises, and it absolutely solves the problem, the real intention is how dare you not let people know that thing exists. However, it's the artistry to then take where they are and bring that into the alignment in terms of, I think an aha that a lot of people here need is that it's still kind of the old school way of thinking. I get so many people who go, yeah, but I can't figure out my niche. I can't figure out my niche. I can't figure out my specialty. And the number one thing you need to do is realize that your niche is not just what you do. It's who you are and who you are to that audience and why you are the person who's going to take them on that journey. And it's through that filter that now we don't have to cut down the competition. We don't have to price cut the others. Instead, you are becoming, I'll say it here, you're becoming that unicorn where they specifically want you. So I put this into that category of belief shifting persuasion and these core persuasive content pieces of things that elevate exactly what you do, how you do it, why you do it, but strategically in a way that's actually important to the audience. And not just bullet points and features. Not just numbers of sessions and number of videos in the library. Ooh, I filmed a new thing today and it's 10 short videos. Whoa! Well, what does it do though? And why is that important to you? These are those deeper questions we need to be asking. So Sunny, who asked, what should I be saying in my videos? It comes around to where is your audience right now on their journey? And how can you be that person who is the bridge to then take them from where they are to where they need to go? The person who does that, let's go back to where we started today, isn't going to run into those price objections. Isn't going to have to bargain because, oh, this other person does this other person does that, this other person prices this way. It's where you truly step into that expert position because it's that person who can speak to those desires and those wants better than anyone else and clearly demonstrate, here's the journey I'm going to take you on. That's what this content needs to be produced towards. And not just, oh, do this. But yeah, got this here in the chat here. Love who you are. Yeah. Hey, I love who you are too. It's that the niche is not just the what and the who in the audience. It's who you are and why you are that person. This is what's trending more than anything else right now. And the fact that I have to say this is trending really makes this sound silly. People-to-people communication. People do business with people. If you're trying to present what you do as this fake corporate entity, you're hurting yourself. Look at the moments in the companies we're aware of that have even created a character. Flo from Progressive, Jake from State Farm. Somehow it's the insurance companies that get this. We go into something that we feel safe with. When you look at the history when Weight Watchers was doing well and when they were struggling, it was when they connected you with people as opposed to this faceless thing. And instead, it's that ability to be that person that represents that bridge, that journey where they want to go. That's what's going to win more than anything else here. That's the focus for any piece of content, video, written, any of it. That's the direction to go. Which brings us full circle to Jack's final question. Jack, good to have you here once again. This one I got by email. I was previously posting content every single day, and as long as I was doing that, it was working, but I couldn't keep it up. Should I hire a social media agency to do it for me? Okay, so I just talked about how I surround myself with a team of people now. And even as we do our consulting, it's not just me, it's the Avengers that I've assembled around me as well. How did we not say that until today? We need to use that, guys. So it's that journey. At the same time, though, I'm a firm believer in outsourcing. if the design ever looks good, I didn't do it. I may have drawn it on the back of a sheet of paper and took a photo of it and then maybe made a video and go, make it look like this, but use this purple, not that purple. I know. If it's ever a website that actually loads, then someone smarter than me did that. So I am a firm believer in avoiding what's referred to as superhero syndrome, that you can't do it all yourself, so you need to learn how to do it all yourself. I'm the guy who used to say, I need to become dangerous enough with these different softwares. And like yesterday, I gave someone who works with me my Adobe password because I've paid for Photoshop, but I don't know how to edit out the background. But she did. She goes, yeah, but I don't have a Photoshop license. And I'm like, log me out of mine. She swooped in. It didn't kick her out. She did the artwork. I'm like, good, you all set? Cool, let me take it back now. I need it. If anyone turns me into Adobe for this 5 minutes of sharing with a team member, so be it. Yet, here's what I found to be true. And we've got someone that we've been working with that, as much as here's the support pathway and time that we give them, I am the guy who controls the calendar. And I snuck this person some extra time because you run into this scenario where sometimes you get this feeling that I'm just going to hire the done for you. And because I'm throwing money at something, I feel like I'm being productive. And I don't need you to call out in the chat if you've done that before. But I can tell you some of the places where I took something that was working and just let it frickin' crash and burn was because I handed off too much of that creative control. Yes, I was always seeing drafts. Yes, I was always seeing the feedback and stuff. Yet these people, not to put them down, I've got good friends who run social media companies. It's the fact that they are producing more for the category. And a big thing that I talk about here is that of climbing out of that commodity trap. If you start to look like everyone else, it's all the questions we were getting about why am I invisible? Why did my referrals stop? How do I bring in the right people? What do I do with objections? That's the game of living in the commodity trap. And what happened was, in this person's case, they were positioning the company in a way that seemed like a fit, yet it was just neutralizing all the messaging. And it was people expecting like low-cost classes as opposed to expert-level one-to-one services, which is what she provided. So I've got to say, the actual messaging and consistency of that is, I would comfortably say, the very last thing you ever job out. Because if you can't even yet sell it to yourself consistently, I don't want you to be in this situation hoping and praying that someone else who they've got a flashy site, they're going to bring it in. You know, if there's ever going to be something, I want it to be more collaborative. Yet I have completely shocked companies that I've worked with over the years where I'm able to say that audience doesn't respond to this. No, we need to say it this way instead. No, here's the one thing we need to hit every single time for the different audiences that I speak to. And if you don't yet have that clarity, this is expensive. So down the road, it becomes a viable option. Yet again, I'd say it's the very last thing that you outsource. And I would say, Jack, I was previously posting every day and it was working, but it only worked when I was actually doing it. There's a deeper system behind the consistency of what I teach and what we consult on, where at its core, here's a specific category of content, and it suddenly becomes this easier task when you realize, oh wait, I just need 4 of those this month. Let me do all of those in one sitting, and suddenly 20 minutes later, you're like a quarter of the way through your content strategy. And then I need this. And in terms of the bigger systems, we start to realize it's about changing a few elements, but the core persuasive assets stay the same. So the joke I've been making to our people who, yay, some of them have mugs, are that maybe when they do t-shirts that say, you'll soon become amazed how you can get away with so much with so very little. Not to diminish it, but it's that ability to continuously speak through the same megaphone, anchor the message in the audience's minds and ears that they need to hear, which is then allowing them to run the sales process for you. As somebody who has given away more free content online than most in this world will ever sell, There's a reason why my book, it's over there. Can I point? Yes, I move my body. I can find it. There it is. It's blurred out with the camera lens. It's called Work Smart Business. And it's not about effort for the sake of effort. It's instead dialing in the right influential strategies so that then it's not something that we're having to reinvent every single week. To the point that once this core persuasive part is really dialed in, if we suddenly said, okay, now do a challenge. All right, now do a webinar. Now give a talk at this local group. Now you've been invited to give a webinar, Facebook Live thing in someone else's Facebook group. You know what buttons need to be pressed. You know what segments of your message should then elevate, and we spend more time dialing in the message specific to the audience in front of us and not having to reinvent the wheel every single time, which, Jack, shoot me a message when you see this. I know you're watching on the replay, if that answers really what that concern is. As somebody who's a huge fan of outsourcing, I will say anything concerning the messaging and the consistent bringing people into your world, that's going to be the very last thing you hand off, because that's the thing that is the most important. Quick message, which is not meant to brag. I'm a member of a mastermind, Inner Circle, with the ClickFunnels group, that I had to prove that I ran more than $1 million through one web page and show 7 figures of income, and really have to prove it. And it's this moment that I'm at one of our gatherings, and I'm there just letting my head inflate as someone's speaking at it and goes, yeah, of course, you are all the people who realize that the messaging is what really needs to be dialed in. It's not until you get that messaging truly connected right. And I'm hearing going, just say the words influence, just say the words persuasion, just give me an attract pre-sold clients inside of that, and then I'll pull the sound clip. And no, they didn't say it, but that's what we're talking about here. And that's what we help with. That needs to be the very last thing that jobs out. Hey, I want to thank you all, because I've been watching the attendance as we do these Q&A events. Often go a little bit longer than some of the interviews I do featuring our students' wins and really cool things that are going on, or other times where I hop on and just directly teach. I love these because it's giving me the understanding of where you are as well. So 2 things to tie this all together. One would be, let's keep this momentum going. We offer this client attraction audit. If you're someone who's not yet working with us, if you're watching this on Facebook, you can drop a comment down below, put the word START in all caps. We do that in 3 steps. It's about diagnosing why your current marketing message isn't yet working or scaling the way that you want, offering specific suggestions on what needs to happen to truly activate it. And then, if we know we can help you, we'll tell you what that looks like. If we don't think we can help you, we won't try to sell you anything. So if you want to have that chat with us, if you're someone who's not yet working with us, put the word START down below. If you're watching this on a website replay page, there's no chat. There's probably a giant purple button. Click that. Grab a time on the calendar. But for those of you in Facebook land, or even when we put this up on YouTube perhaps, do this, because let's keep this conversation going. I saw a few questions come in that I'll do my best to hit by the end of this week to make sure they get a response. But drop down below some of the takeaways. What stood out? What perhaps changed the way that you think of a certain thing that you're doing in your business? Or, hey, this is the place where this is a private group. You can practice some vulnerability. We often find this place where we realize, oh, that's why that thing wasn't working. And now I've got the clarity. Here's the direction I need to go instead. That's the pathway to that consistent client attraction. So I want to thank all of you for joining me here today. I'm seeing someone saying, see you soon in Orlando, because we're having a gathering sometime in the next couple of weeks here. As always, change your words, change your business, change your life. We can't wait to speak with you soon. Get started now. Thanks for watching.